There's a really important question circulating around the media that in America we really need to answer, and fast. The question is, could the war in Iran cause lasting effects to our food security here in America?
Start with you. You've warned that the world could face famine within months. Not just parts of the world, the world. Extraordinarily stark prediction. What leads you to believe that that threat is immediate?
30% of the world's fertilizer passes through the Strait, which now been disrupted for over a month. There's no sign of this war stopping at any time, so the disruption continues. That means that unless countries have got fertilizer stocks worth 2 or 3 or 6 months or a year's worth of yield, then they're going to be hit at some point. The stocks run out, the buffer stocks run out, and they're stuck with the flow coming from the Strait. And we've also seen the damage to those plants, as you said. There is not going to be enough fertilizer available. The point that people don't understand is that without fertilizer, the carrying capacity of the planet is about 2 billion people. So 6 billion of us are alive because fertilizer flows freely. Now it's not flowing freely, and that could have all sorts of catastrophic effects in a range of countries, a lot of which couldn't even imagine the thought that they might face a famine. They could with this disruption, meaning that when the crops are planted, there's not the sufficient yield and you won't have enough food for your people. And that could apply to places like England.
Right. That's what I was hoping you would say at that point there. We're talking about rich nations here being affected as well as poorer nations.
Yeah, the usual bias we have is it's always going to be a problem for brown people. Now, let's be frank, we've got masses of racism in the way we think about the world. And the West doesn't worry when brown people die. Well, what does happen when white people start dying? I think they might pay a bit more attention.
It's really easy to bury our heads in busy work and shield our eyes from the ridiculousness in the news. But the reality is our country is in conflict that directly affects us in every single way, and also every other country in the world. This is not fan fiction, this is fact. Now, if you have been paying attention, you would have seen, as of this Sunday, April 19th, the Strait of Hormuz is back closed again after just being reopened due to a disagreement between the United States and Iran. There's currently a ceasefire deal between the United States and Iran, as well as Palestine and Israel. Yet the former of the two will end on Wednesday if there's no resolution, and even more unlikely that an extension is made to this decision.
About 30% of the world's fertilizers usually pass through the strait. Since the war began, fertilizer shipments along this route have largely stopped, cutting supplies to farmers worldwide. Prices for urea, one of the world's most widely used fertilizers, have already jumped by about 40%. Nearly half of the world's urea is exported from Gulf countries via the strait. High prices and shortages mean farmers use less fertilizer, and analysts say that could cause crop yields to fall by up to 30% in some regions.
This battle over control of the strait, which transports 20% of the world's oil, as well as potable water, food, and other necessary imports and exports for multiple nations, has even more deadly defects than just gas prices.
The Iran war has created risks to food security from higher energy costs and shipping restrictions. The world's fertilizer production has been badly hit due to attacks on Gulf chemical plants. Where is food supply most at risk, and could there be lasting impact?
The simple fact is that synthetic fertilizer is a byproduct of oil. If there's no oil flow, then our food production system will suffer. The three main questions that I have to ask is: one, what is being done to remedy our production system? Two, who is leading that charge? And three, is the answer really just to rid ourselves of petroleum fertilizer dependency as a whole? I'm gonna leave a few more clips from this Al Jazeera story, but I definitely recommend that you guys check it out. I'm gonna leave the link in the description below. Definitely worth the watch, very informative. It's hard to listen to, but it's definitely something that we should, take serious and realize that it's real. There's a lot of stuff going on in the media that's very, very sad to see, and it's hard to even believe that we're in this position right now. But there's things that we can do. There's changes that can be made individually and as communities, small communities and big. The entire world is being affected, and we really just got to figure out how to make things work. together, jointly and as a family in reality. So I'm gonna leave it there. Do what you can do, and spread the word. I'm gonna continue to do my farming and my posting as much as I possibly can. I personally am not very political. I don't really like to post stuff like this, but it's important to watch the news. It's important to see what's going on so that you can make changes in your own reality, in your own life.
I mean, some would say that the predictions that you made right at the beginning of the discussion here of famine in countries like Britain are perhaps overly alarmist. What would you say to those who might argue that you are overstating the danger right now?
I'm not overstating the potential. Okay, it might not happen. We might be lucky. Shipments might arrive just in time. There may be enough fertilizer stocks to avoid a total calamity. All these things are a possibility. But at the same time, the other possibility is still there. Now, what happens if you don't talk about it? You end up letting idiots like Donald Trump blunder into the Middle East thinking it's all about controlling the flow of oil without realizing he's disrupting the entire industrial production system of the whole planet. So ignorance, I would rather have people be too alarmed than too ignorant.
All right. Avinash, what do you make of that?
I don't know. I'm not sure about the theory of change here. Is that if alarmism leads to better action and thing? I am not sure. I don't have enough experience.
Okay. All right.
I think as scientists, we should make predictions based.
Let me put this to you. Let me put this to you then, Avinash. If India were forced to protect its own domestic supply by restricting grain exports, what do you think the knock-on effect would be for countries that rely on Indian exports?
India has done that in the past. Till recently, our rice and wheat exports were banned. Rice, we are a big game. 40% of globally traded rice comes from India. And it would lead to higher prices in countries that rely on it. So Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Nepal. In India, some parts of Africa, Northern and Eastern Africa, also the rice consumption is growing, and East Asia. So prices would increase, as our delegate from UNESCO said. When prices increase, it's the poorest in those countries who would suffer more. So there would be a pinch on the pocket of consumers, absolutely. But I won't go to the extent of predicting famines just yet.
All right, Avinash, you heard Murad talking about the perfect storm. What about there in India? If, for example, India were to face poor rains as well as prolonged disruption to its supply of fertilizers, how serious could that combination become for India in particular?
So not in 2026. I think we would still be okay because India has about 60 million tons of rice and wheat stored. More is coming in. I guess then India's response would be to restrict exports of rice and wheat too. That will have an effect on rice prices globally. And that would affect everyone. Within India, my sense is that there may be increase in rice prices and wheat prices early next year. That would affect Indian poor badly. And if fertilizer supplies don't even not restored even next year, then I don't even know what to predict and what to think about. Then things can get quite serious.
Murad, what should governments in the Arab region be doing right now urgently to avoid this becoming a full-blown humanitarian emergency?
Oh, I think we have a full-blown humanitarian emergency in the Sudan.
Steve, help us understand. I'm going to circle back here a little bit, but help us understand why fertilizer in particular matters so much to this conversation that we're having here. Many people watching or listening may not immediately connect disruption in Gulf petrochemicals or the close of the Strait of Hormuz, the closure of that, to the price of the food on their supermarket shelves.
Well, we think we eat green stuff. Ever since we've invented fertilizer, we've been eating brown stuff. The green wrapping on the outside is basically us turning fossil fuels into food. That's what the fertilizer does. So you have to previously rely upon nutrients you'd find in the soil, or replenishing from animals and so on. And that approach to putting fertilizer in, as I said in the beginning, would have support about 2 billion people at most. Now, instead, we use products from petroleum byproducts. The nitrogenous fertilizers and superphosphates both involve using petrochemicals as part of the input process. So that's why the plants are located where the petrochemicals are drilled. Now, this is just how fragile we are. We think we have enormous resilience, but in fact we have enormous fragility. And this was going to be exposed by global warming, but Donald Trump is a bit like a 4-6 cyclone coming in before the natural ones start turning up and showing us how delicate our production systems are. They are not robust. They are very dependent upon specific inputs from specific locations, which cannot be easily replaced once they're damaged. And of course, at the moment, the supply is shut down completely by the blockage of the Strait of Hormuz.
Avinash, I know you're not quite as pessimistic as Steve, but has this conflict at least exposed just how dependent the world remains on a very small number of producers and shipping routes for absolutely critical agricultural inputs?
That's true. We cannot deny it. But that one thing I'll add to Steve's point is the production fragility. Related to it is the fragility of the trade. We are interdependent on many things. If trade restrictions were not to happen logistically or by policy, then trade can help reduce fragility in production in one location or the other. The worst outcome would be if production itself suffers and then trade also suffers, right? If we stop trading, if we put export bans, one of the regions we are in a more fragile situation is China, which is the largest producer of fertilizers, has stopped exporting or restricted exporting both urea and phosphatic fertilizers. That has made the situation worse. So trade restrictions, export restrictions by some countries or many countries makes the situation worse here. If trade keeps flowing, if it were to keep flowing, we'll have less vulnerability, as we saw right after Ukraine crisis and other crises.
Murad, very quickly, countries like Lebanon and Yemen were already under severe